Aquile,
Hello.
hey, what are you doing in Italy?
Right now I'm working at H Farm. So H Farm is a lot of different things. It started out as a startup accelerator. Today we do like we are an education company, and we also do consulting for companies in the field of digital transformation. So that's where I'm working. Yeah, and we're based off Venice. So pretty.
But what are you doing in Italy? You sound American.
I know. Sorry, I've lived in the states for like overall probably 3 years of my life, and that's where I kind of got the accent. Funny story. I think I used to have a Scottish accent because for a while I lived in Scotland as well. I'm very, I guess, receptive to accents where I live, so they kind of stick with me.
That's funny. So I'll have to bring you to Israel for a year or so, and then I wonder how your accent will sound like.
Yeah, that'll be fun to see.
So, Aquile, if you had to choose where was the starting point of your career, where would it be? Like, what was your first job, even as a kid?
Well, my family has my uncle has an olive grove, and part of my family has been doing vineyards. Not anymore, really. So I would say the first kind of job that I ever had was like picking grapes and picking olives as a summer job or end of summer job when I was like 15 or 16, something like that.
Which
I
part of Italy is it?
sorry, I'm sorry. What did you say?
Which part of Italy we're talking about?
So basically, it's the north of Venice. I don't know if you know Prosecco. You probably know Prosecco. You've been hanging around those
Yeah.
areas quite a lot. So yeah, that's where Prosecco is made, and it's
Hmm.
called Conegliano. The area is called Conegliano, and there's beautiful hills there. A lot of wine, a lot of olive oil. So it's pretty nice. So that's
So
what I've
you
been
picked up
doing.
grapes.
Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
absolutely, absolutely. So basically, that's my first job, I would say. I've been doing a lot of very different, very wild things from like, working as a bartender in Norway at one point to, working at KFC, making burgers at KFC. That's what I was doing in Scotland. I've been working with kids a lot in my life.
Oh,
So,
oh,
yeah, just
oh, wait, Aquila. How did you get to Scotland?
So well, what I did, I think it was my first year of college, and I wanted to, be away from here for a few months, and I just basically pointed a random point in Europe in the map and went there, and that point was Edinburgh. I mean, of course, I had to be limited to Europe because, well, that's where you can legally work if you're European. Well, not anymore, actually. Probably in a few months, I won't be able to work in Scotland. We'll see. But yeah, definitely. So it was a random experience. I wanted to do something different, and I just went there. I had a very small budget, like probably a few hundred euros, and I wanted to prove to myself that I could establish my life somewhere else, and that's what I did. And then when I was settled, I went back to university.
So moving out to Edinburgh as an Italian, how does it feel?
Well, at that time, I was probably like 18 or 19, and it was quite tough also because my English wasn't good at all. I mean, I've improved a lot since then, but you really get a sense of the immigrant life. I was working really lowly jobs, I was working really humble jobs. It was a lot of fun. I was working a lot of hours every day, so I was like pulling 10 hours at KFC, and then I was working in a theater, like as an usher, and so for another 4 or 5 hours every night. So it was kind of a tough life, but it was really formative, really fun, and I love the weather there. I don't love the heat too much, which is weird for an Italian, but
It's so funny because I've met you a few times in H Farm, Italy, but I would never imagine you either working with grapes or at KFC.
right, right.
It's very not kind of like your character today. But you know what? Uh, maybe we just give the music a little respect and give it a few seconds. What do you say?
Sure, let's do it.
Okay. We'll start in 2 seconds.
Yeah. Boop, 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 boop. One time. Look. Ring the alarm. Hot ass nigga. Yeah. Big ass head so my dreams get bigger. Yeah.
Okay, Akilah. So we're having you from Italy, H Farm. It's quite next to Venice. And I met you because we had the pleasure to work together a few times. Yes. On some interesting things you guys do at H Farm. But before we get there, and I want to hear a lot about the way the team is structured in H Farm and how projects are being done in H Farm, because it's such a beautiful but more important innovative place in Italy. I really want to deep dive a bit more about the starting of your career, because it sounds like you were very far off from working with entrepreneurships or about innovation. And so how was it in KFC? Like, really? Like, did you make friends there?
Okay, so basically it was me and a bunch of Polish people. And then there was some Indian people as well. I don't recall there being any Scottish person really, which is probably what you would expect from a job like that. I had a lot of fun. I made some friends. I would say I didn't make the closest friends I made in Edinburgh there, just because it was a tough. But I've definitely made good contacts. We're still in touch, and and many have moved on to entirely different things. From yoga instructors to serial travelers and things like that. So it's cool to see where our lives moved. But yeah, basically I was making burgers all day. They on the speaker, the drive-in thing. But if you my poor English at that time, plus the speakerphone, plus the Scottish accent, I was doing a terrible job there. So probably I lasted half a day, one day in that position, and then I was back to making burgers. It was pitiful.
They moved to the drinks where Coca-Cola sounds different than Sprite.
Yeah, right.
And did your parents have any expectations from you at that time, would you say?
That's a cool question, actually, because I was raised in a very rural area. My parents, basically, I'm the first one in my family to graduate ever. Like, if you look, deep down in my family tree, I don't remember anyone being getting a university degree. And they really placed a high importance on my career, on my education, of course. But they, I've always done well enough that they were never putting pressure on me. They were just, this is your job, do things well. But they weren't pushy at all, and they were pretty laid back in terms of what I wanted to achieve. They were pretty cool. I don't know if it's because, maybe not having been through much school, they didn't know what to expect really, or just because they trusted me. I want to believe it's the second one, of course. But yeah, no, it was really great. And also growing up like this, in a very rural setting, I had a lot to discovery to do, because you don't really know what real life and real jobs look like too much. So I did high school, and then I had this idea that I wanted to be accomplished or financially well off in some ways. And the logical idea there, which is now I see how narrow-minded that is go study economics, go study business. That was so far out from my interests and my comfort zone, really, on so many levels. But I somehow thought that was the best thing to do, and I pursued that path. And of course, I wasn't meant to be fully in that area, so that's why I strayed a lot. And eventually, I found my passion for education and for learning, and then I've been able, despite of my educational background, I've been able to apply that in several different ways. It was a little bit of turns. It wasn't a straight path, but yeah, I'm glad about all those turns, because I learned something along the way.
Yeah. So, Akila, how old are you, by the way?
I am now 29.
29. Okay. So, you grew up between olives and grapes, but did you have a computer? Like, did you grow up with the internet?
I think my first computer, I got it when I was like 8 or 9. And it's pretty funny because I was scared of computers when I was a kid. Like, I don't know, at one point, like, I was really excited when I got my first, Windows 95 computer. And then at
Yeah.
one point, I got a blue screen of death. And I thought I broke the thing. And I had this huge computer in my room, like, and I remember, I remember that blue screen, and I remember not knowing what to do and thinking, "Oh my God, I broke the computer." So I left the blue screen there, and I went to sleep. And I remember sleeping the whole night with this very eerie blue light in my room, and thinking, "Oh my God, how am I going to deal with this tomorrow morning?" And that really, I was genuinely scared about computers and about breaking them for a few years. So it's crazy to
Wow.
think about that and think about my relationship with technology now, which is completely different, of course. So
Yeah.
I grew up with computers. We got I went through all the phases, all the stages of the internet. Of course, here in Italy, we were probably not as fast as like the States or perhaps even Israel in adopting that technology. So I went through the 56K, what is like the thing that makes a lot of weird noises.
Yeah.
And the first so-called broadbands that had like, I don't know what, like 50 kilobits per second or 50 kilobytes per second, which was like a lot at that time. And then,
Yeah.
down. Now I have a 30 megabit connection, and it feels like a dream, even though it's still crap for other standards.
Yeah. So the reason I was asking is because you get to uni and university, and I wonder if you felt like you have the skills needed for you to, like, to know how to play the game.
Well, at university, I think the skill gap, and I definitely hit my head against a huge skill gap, but that wasn't when I got to university. That was when I was out of university. Because still, the way it works in Italy, when you're in university, it doesn't work at all like real life. So it's still about like studying a lot of books, cramming a lot, like 2 weeks before the exam. And honestly, I did a pretty tough high school where we studied really hard, kind of like, studying the classics and things like that. So it was pretty hard. So after that kind of experience in high school, university was pretty easy for me. And I was actually able to do so many things in my free time in my life because school wasn't much of a burden to me. I was just, maybe attend the courses if it was mandatory, and take notes, and then a couple weeks before the exam I would just cram, and then I'll be done with it and move on and do something more fun. So
Yeah.
really the skill gap and like the feeling of not being adequate for life hit me later. Hit me when I started looking for my first real jobs, and like I live in an area where there's not a lot of opportunities. It's not like more urban areas like Milan or other European capitals. So it was really hard to find places where you could work, and I lacked so many social, emotional, cognitive skills even that I had to quickly make up for.
So it's, by the way, it's funny. It's funny you haven't even mentioned Rome. You mentioned just Milan because
Right.
from what I see, North Italians are like, Milan is our real
Yeah.
city.
Yeah, I mean, Milan is super cool. There's a lot happening, and I feel
Yeah.
probably Milan right now in Italy is where you can feel truly European and like truly, there's a good vibe where like you're not missing out on life if you live in Milan today, like in as a global citizen. Whereas
Yeah.
other cities in Italy, if you're looking for certain things, maybe you're not gonna find them.
Yeah. And so, okay, so how did you find your first job, and how did you look for it?
Well, I would need to qualify like what my first job is because I had so many experiences that were sketchy and not really like, was that a job or was that not a job? Like at
Yeah,
one
well,
point,
tell me
like,
about them.
I mean, so many different things. And like, of course, internships, weird internships. And of course, I was still doing all the other kind of job, like, leafleting or things like that to earn some money on the side. But yeah, probably my first like job that I would consider a kind of a real job was working as an intern for a printing company, and they were like setting up their web, like their e-commerce and things like that. But there was no one that knew anything about digital marketing there, so it was kind of a bumpy road. We actually had
And
help from a really
what was your interning doing? What?
digital marketing, I think. And that was like after my 3-year degree. I was doing, yeah, really, I was maintaining their website and the e-commerce. I was writing for their blog. I was managing ads like Google Ads, display, and other things. I was doing newsletters. So basically, the the typical small company digital marketing package, I would say.
Yeah. But how did you know how to do that?
I didn't, and looking back, I probably did a really poor job at it. We had a little bit of help from a local agency. At that time, it was a really small agency, and now they're grown much bigger, and there's a lot of cool people working there. So I'm grateful to have been able to work with them for a little while, because there was a lot of learning to do working with them. But we
Yeah.
didn't have a big budget, so it's not like they did the whole thing for us. Yeah, and then a lot of online resources, of course, blogs, podcasts. Yeah, I mean, I tried my best to learn a little bit. You needed to know a lot of things, of course, because there was one person doing all the digital in the company. But yeah,
Yeah.
it was an interesting learning curve for sure.
And they say that, I mean, even knowing how to search for the right knowledge on the internet is so important to know, right? Because otherwise you're lost. And again, I wonder, because you talked about your experience in Italian university and with books, etc. So where did you pick up this knowledge, or do you think you are just native because you're from the right generation?
I think I was native because for the kind of interest that I had growing up, the internet was probably the only place where I would feed those interests. Like, well, the basic things like video games, or it's funny because I remember when I was like a kid, 7 or 8 or 9 years old, I would buy video game magazines, which now sounds crazy, right? Because it wasn't like the internet wasn't really a thing back then.
Yeah.
So I would write letters to them, and they would publish them on their paper magazine, which sounds crazy. But then, after that, after a few years, searching for things, being on forums, for example, before Reddit was, maybe Reddit was already a thing, but definitely not in Italy. And I was really living online for a long time. I remember I had my first blog when I was like 14 or 15. And at that point, I'm not going to give you URLs or anything. I hope everything is down by now, because it was pretty depressing, emo kind of thing. Of course, 15 years old. But yeah.
Now I'm interested.
Yeah, no, you're never going to find it. I'm sorry. No way. Not even like if you threaten me. I'm sorry.
Okay. And so did you feel the gap between you and your parents was big, or, I mean...
Yeah, definitely there is a generational gap. And I would think, for their generation, probably, living in such a rural area, maybe it was a bit wider than it is on average. Yeah, I mean, my parents, I love my parents, and I'm so grateful for their help. And they trusted me that I would make the right choices, and I had such freedom to make all the choices I wanted to make, and they were just supporting me. However
Yeah,
they
that's
could.
amazing.
Yeah, really. And part of it was like, me doing things that they weren't fully aware of. But of course, as I said before, it was a lot of trust too, and knowing that I would eventually do the right thing. But yeah, definitely. I mean, if you think about my dad basically, he never used a computer in his own life. Like really never turned on a computer in his own life.
Is he still working in the farm or the field?
No. Well, I mean, his main job was never the farm. He started working really early, like when he was 14, and he started working in factory. He was driving a truck for deliveries. He was doing installing garage doors. So that's the kind of job he did up until like when he was 54 or 55, and then he retired early, of course, because he started working so early. So now he's been retired for some 15 years, and he's living the good life. And then my mom was
Italian pension.
Sorry?
Italian pension, that's a big issue.
Yeah, right. I think, I mean, he's still in the generation that got it good. I mean, I'm not going to have any pension. So, yeah. So, yeah, definitely was a big gap. And like now he's learning like how to use WhatsApp and things like that. He's not a big fan of digital. My mom is better. My mom is it's like she's even on Twitter now. She caught up like for a few years now. Like, I mean, she's really into it. And yeah.
She's just following or she's writing? Like tweeting?
I wouldn't know. I think she's writing sometimes. Like she's retweeting a lot. I don't think she writes things. I don't think she's that kind of person. But she lurks a lot and she reads a lot. And and she's pretty advanced for her generation, I would say too.
Yeah, it sounds like. Okay, so after working in that printing company doing digital, what was your next gig?
Yeah, so basically, I had done a semester in the States during my bachelor's degree. I loved the United States, and I really felt when I came home that I had something else to do there. So, funny story. One of the reasons why I applied to my master's degree, which is in marketing, is because the university had a program in the States that I wanted to apply to. But the program was in an entirely different subject because I studied marketing, and the program was like for language teaching, for teaching Italian. So I really tried hard to apply for that. The first year I didn't get it, and then the second year I finally got it. And so I had the chance to go work in the States for a year as a language learning, like teaching assistant.
Where exactly?
It's like where? It's the town is called Hamilton. It's in New York State, so it's probably like in between Toronto and New York City, I would say.
Okay, quite north.
Yeah, it is quite north. So you're looking at minus 33, 35 degrees in the winter.
Wow.
Yeah.
Celsius?
I mean, I love cold weather, as I said, so it wasn't too big of a deal.
Wow. That sounds harsh for me, but so how was in the States being Italian?
It was great actually, because I was working in university and like basically I was there to represent Italy. And it's funny how I learned so many things about my culture, like while being abroad, represented it. It's just great. I mean, everyone loves Italy and is fascinated by Italy. And I guess, in that context, really, I was encouraged to bring my Italianness forward, I would say. And I had to dig deeper. I had to dig quite deep at some points to find it. But
nationalist.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
To feel more nationalist.
Yeah, definitely. Like it was. I definitely reconciled with so many aspects of my culture there. When you look at from a distance, and you look at, I was in an office where basically there was 8 people from all from different countries doing the same job, but for their respective cultures. So it's pretty cool. A lot of culture shocks and getting to compare different cultures was an exciting time.
Yeah. I've been okay. So you were teaching assistant, but you didn't have a different job there?
I mean, no, I was doing that. I was doing some private tutoring sometimes, but like, yeah, my main job there was teach Italian. And then, well, I would say the other job that I had there was continuing to grow the little project that I had back home, because I was working there during the academic year, of course. So during the summer, I could come back. And in 2013, I joined a little nonprofit organization that runs language camps for kids. And so I was I was managing that from the States, and like coming back every now and then to, for main events and things like that. And during those years, we also grew the organization and made it bigger. So when I got there in 2013, it was not doing too well. Then we revamped it, new website, new communication, new programs. We redesigned the learning programs for all the kids. We did a lot of we created new programs, and and it was a pretty fun job.
What's the goal of this organization?
I'm sorry, what did you say?
What is the goal of this organization? Tell us more about it.
It's a local organization that wants to expand the cultural horizons of local kids. We do well. I mean, I'm not working there anymore, but they're still working there. So I mean, it's still going strong. And the organization basically runs language camps where there's teachers from all over the world coming to teach kids English. And there's theater classes. There's parties, things like that we organize. There's like charity events that we organize throughout the year. So there's a bunch of different things, and the theme, everything revolves around the idea of connecting these kids who live in a pretty closed off area to global values, to international people, languages and cultures. Which actually, I did something like that when I was growing up, and I did similar camps, and it had a huge impact on me. So I wanted to kind of continue that for other kids in my area.
Amazing. So you help them to get to the new world and be more digital, have a website, etc. So they can use the new marketing methods to get more. So the hardest part there, I guess, was to get the teachers, right? Like people who would volunteer to come and be teaching.
Absolutely, because of course, we are bootstrapped, no funding. We live off like the little money that we can gather, and this was not expensive. Okay, so we were providing camps for like half or like a third of the price of our like for-profit camps in the area, and we, of course, our struggle was to maintain the same kind of quality. So what we did a lot of times, well, of course, at that time I had built quite a network of people abroad, and like I was kind of convincing them to, why don't you come there and spend a month in Italy and like have a good time. We were really using the local brand to pull people in. So, come see the Prosecco hills, have a sip of Prosecco in Valdobbiadene, and like we were posting pictures on Instagram about the kind of lifestyle that you would experience for a month coming there. And we really had to leverage that because, of course, we couldn't afford paying too much. And also the thing is that we got sometimes, we got really experienced teachers, and sometimes we were betting on less experienced teachers. So throughout the summer, I had to kind of train them and work with them on programs, have them, expand their knowledge and be ready for when the camps would start. And also we would, look to pair them with more experienced teachers. So we went out of our way to make sure, we could deliver a quality classroom, even though, we were working with limited means.
This is amazing. And the kids didn't have to pay, right?
I mean, the kids paid really a really low fee. And of course, then there were special situations where, for a number of reasons, private reasons, they wouldn't be able to pay, and we would work around that, of course. But really, it wasn't that expensive. It was cheaper than, even like church camps or things like that. So it was really like money was pretty much out of the equation. We had, I think, when I was working there, we had a team, like my last year there, we had a team of 25 people, and they were like volunteers, or like they were getting some form of like reimbursement for expenses or things like that. But it was really like the cool thing is that we built a community of friends and like local people, and that really believed in the project and, maintained it and made it grow with their energies.
Yeah, amazing. Always, when I hear about this kind of projects just made of people who are helping people creating communities, it's just amazing how, it's not easy because it's hard work, but it's just so probable. It's just something that can be done. And I think a lot of people are not even thinking of starting these things, but it's just something you could do if you have enough energy.
Right.
Okay, Aquile, let's get to H Farm. Was that your next job?
Pretty much, yes. So I did 2 years in the States working in university, and then I came back home. I was totally stranded because, at that point I had realized that I wanted to be in learning. I wanted to be in education, which is something I hadn't studied for university, but that was like my sweet spot. So I came home. I had a summer of struggling and not knowing where to go. I applied for a lot of different places. I had that kind of sliding doors moment where I got like offers for jobs in wildly different areas. So I remember at one point, it was like July 2016 or something. I had a teaching offer for teaching English in Shanghai and in Japan, close to Tokyo.
Wow.
And then I had I did all the rounds of interviews with IKEA to work in their food department, like in their
IKEA.
Yes, that's wildly different. I was actually in IKEA last Saturday with a colleague of mine, and we were thinking like, if I had accepted the job and if I were working here, like how different my life would be. But I was really applying to a lot of different things because I was kind of desperate, and feeling I was edging towards unemployable because, I studied something, then I went abroad for 2 years doing something like in academia, completely different. And like, how am I supposed to use that into a real world job now? I started, I went to an H Farm event. At that point, the education part of H Farm. So, we have an international school, we have summer camps for kids, we have a university program. So we have a lot of different things. But at that point, it was just starting to be born. And I went to an event. I spoke to the headmaster of the school. The idea was to go teach in the school, like as as an economics teacher or something like that. It didn't we spoke throughout the summer, and in the meantime, I was doing a lot of interviews, and then it didn't quite land there. But I got to speak to other people from the master's department because at that point, we were launching a series of master programs, which are not real like masters. Think more like alt MBA or programs like not traditional academic programs. And so, I guess I spoke to the right people, and there was a job opening, and I entered in H Farm education as a content designer.
So wait, just a sec. First, you'll have to explain again what is H Farm, and second, those master's degrees are the ones that I was teaching at, and that's how we met eventually, right?
Correct. That's when I met you, Lear.
Okay. So what is H Farm in a few sentences?
Yes. So we started I guess it's we now. We started in 2005. Basically, our founder, Ricardo Donadon, had this, he had built a wildly successful web agency during the first years of the, .com boom. And like, he was one of the first few people to get, internet business right in Italy. And of course, that was a huge success for him. He sold the company, and then he wanted to do something for his local area. So he bought actually an old farm in the middle of a natural park that goes around that is developing around the river Sile. Sile is like a river that is like south of the Venice region. So we're like basically 10, 15 minutes away from the sea. And so he bought this old farm. He worked as a gardener for a year to clear his mind. And you come there, you've seen that gardeners are one of the main jobs in H Farm because we're in this huge park. Everything, is very like eco-friendly, and we really care about nature and keeping a good like making a good impression also through how plants and gardens and things like that. So he started with the idea to help other people build their own business the way he did with his agency. And so we started as a startup accelerator. Actually, one of the very few first examples in Italy for sure, probably the first one, and then in Europe also. It wasn't a huge thing in 2005. So it started like that. Few startups, of course. During throughout the years, we had to realize, we're not the Silicon Valley, and like the capital, the kind of investments that you would get in Italy. There are so many ways in which we're different from California. And so probably, being a startup accelerator wasn't the one thing we had to do in order to be sustainable and, have an impact on new generations, on new business, on like the economic landscape of the local area. And so, gradually we transitioned to other business models. We started having education programs for, young people that wanted to launch their own startup or just be more entrepreneurial in their corporate job, for example. So education was one big venue. And then we started working with companies, of course, because they would come at us and say, okay, so you guys seem to get digital. In Italy, you seem to be one of the, more qualified people to do this. So how do I build my e-commerce? How do I, launch a digital strategy? And so the whole consulting part of H Farm started happening. And that's basically, if you fast forward to today, the education and the consultancy part are the main pillars of what H Farm is. So in the education side, we have a school that is going to have it's going to soon have like maybe 1,000 students. Even like right now we have
it's an international school, right?
It is an international school. So basically, it follows the IBO model. It's a pretty standard, high quality organization for a curriculum, like international curriculum for preschool and K-12, basically. So up to like 18 years old. And we took their curriculum and then put a lot of H Farm style things in it. So there's much more about technology, about entrepreneurship, and kids have their own startup programs that they can join. And then we have a university course that we do in collaboration with the University Ca' Foscari in Venice. And then we have a ton of other little things. Like we have summer camps for kids, not just, kids that attend the whole school, but like even local kids that want to do, like enjoy the H Farm education experience, but like they can't probably, change their school entirely, so they can come for summer schools. We have short programs for like young professionals. We have a ton of other things. And then,
Akilah, just a sec. Can I try to describe it from my eyes? Because it's so hard to describe H Farm, both the place and the company. You guys do so many things. It's like a fantasy for like a lot of entrepreneurs would fantasize to have such a company, because you have a school and it's like K-12 and a university, or kind of like a course for university. Mm-hmm. And you have the consultancy, which you're not just consulting, but you actually build web products and websites and learning products and whatever for amazing companies. Am I allowed to say the names of the companies?
I mean, they're on our website, so I guess you can.
Your IPO, so it's all public. It's like, I mean, just for Israel, it might be very fancy, but it's companies like Bulgari and Campari and Ferrari, like these kind of Italian companies, and all the luxury brands, not just from Italy but also from Paris, etc. Many of them work with you guys, and I think it's so amazing that all of them chose you to work with, and it is because you don't just have the experience and knowledge in web consulting, but also the educational side, which makes you a very original animal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But also the other thing is that, and I think I'll have to post some photos on the podcast.
Right. Audio can't quite make justice to the
Yeah,
place.
because it's like s- it's like it feels like nowhere. It's in the middle of nowhere. Like I was so pissed off that I can't get pizza after 8 p.m. and like there's nobody's doing deliveries there. It's a huge farm, so beautiful. North Italy. A lot of Israelis are going to North Italy, so they know what I'm talking about. Amazingly beautiful. And then when you get into this amazingly beautiful buildings, you get the most advanced technology, or people who are talking or doing the most advanced technology, or people who are teaching kids about the most advanced technology. And it's like a bump between two very, very far worlds, old Italy and the new world. And it's kind of like exploding my mind every time I'm there. Is it so weird / exciting for you as well, even though you're from the area?
Well, it's a bit weird to hear you talk about it, and because of course, like I'm so much into it that sometimes I forget about these things, and they're all true things, the ones you just said. But of course, having worked there for like almost 3 years now, I tend to like forget how special that place is, I guess. But yeah, no, definitely, it is great, and I think you make me think I shouldn't be too complacent about it. Like I sometimes you take things for granted, but yeah, I do really work in a very special place, I guess.
Okay, but you also work in a very special way, right? You were telling
Yes.
me about the way you guys work. So can you try to explain what's this amazing weird way of working?
Yeah, I mean, I'll do my best to do it. It's a constant experiment. Okay, so we're tweaking with our own operating system at H Farm. So basically, I work in one of the business units that do consultancy with companies, as you were mentioning, with all these companies like luxury, also international, fast-moving consumer goods companies, all sorts of clients, national and international. And basically, our business unit deals with strategy, with innovation culture, with learning paths, with product and service design, with organizational design. So all sorts of things that are like, I guess, not technology driven, but ultimately human driven. And that technology is how you make things happen, really. And there's now like 110 people in our team out of the 700 plus people that work at H Farm. So we're a pretty big slice of the company. And a few years ago, even before I started working there, because of course I transitioned from education like a couple years ago, and basically, we realized that the old way of organizing teams wasn't quite working anymore. There was a lot of frustration, a lot of ego, a lot of things that could be done just a little better, I guess. So we kind of tweaked our organization and started to we're tapping into the whole holacracy trend, the self-managed organizations. There's this wonderful book called Reinventing Organizations by Frederic Laloux. That was kind of the philosophy stepping stone of our reorganization. So, we actually built our own software to kind of be the operating system of the company. The software is called Wethod, and it's basically a project and team management system that allows us to be more flexible, more independent. For example, like if I had to tell you like a concrete example, if we have a project, like a project starting with some company, anyone can be the project manager, first of all. And we have two main roles, the project manager and the account. The account deals more with the relationship with the client, the contracts and things like that. whereas the project manager is the person in charge of staffing people, managing the budget and managing resources. And just managing the project itself, of course. But we don't have job title.
What do you mean anyone can be the project manager?
Exactly. So we have areas of expertise, of course, because there are some people are better at some things, and people are better at other things. But we don't have job titles. So okay, I'll start with that. The way it works is that we don't start with a job title, and you can, of course, pick your own job title because we don't want people to fall into an identity crisis on LinkedIn or whatever. Like, you got to put something there, right? So, okay, we just say, find a job title that you think represents your what you actually do here. And if like three of your colleagues can say, okay, yeah, that fits you, then that's your job title and you can have it.
This is crazy.
I know, but like, if you think about it, it's such a natural way to do it, because how can you put a label on what you do, especially if you work in a very dynamic company where like you can have a focus, but then you can do 1,000 other things, because you know very well how startups work, and like it's hard to stick to just one label, and it can change over time, and it's so complicated to just try to capture what you do in one word or in a couple words. So we embrace this and we make it super flexible. And as I was telling you before, anyone can be the project manager, because one core skill that we have is like being able to manage complexity, manage projects. So if I would say, if you work in our team, you'll go much further as a competent and able project manager than if you're like a super specialist in one field, because you're going to be more adaptable. You can work around complexities, you can learn, you can adapt. And so we want everyone, to some extent, to have those skills to speak to the client, because we don't have the people that work in the back room and the people that go talk to the client. Everyone needs to talk to the client, because otherwise, how are you going to understand what they want?
Wow.
And everyone's encouraged to be I'm sorry, what'd you say?
Is it totally flat?
I mean, it is flat on paper. We do have a seniority roles. We have you can be a junior or you can be a senior. I think we have 4, so it's not like super layered. But that is related to how well you can handle complexity, how good you are at representing each farm with clients. So there is some sort of seniority, but that's more related to, experience and like having been there for a long time and like being able to manage complexity, rather than, being super skilled at one specific thing. And of course, we have people that are super skilled at one specific thing, but we don't need to label them. There's a social system for which who's good at what. And like, we encourage people to put their skills out there, use Slack to showcase your abilities. We have a channel on Slack where we post all of our projects, and we have a chance to see what colleagues are working on. And I guess the social structure is thick enough that so many of these things that in regular companies you have to place on formal structures, processes, and labels. These happen very informally and naturally where we work.
So do you have a boss, or it's up to the specific project?
I don't have a boss. I mean, of course, there's one person, Thomas, who is like the partner of he's like the leader of the whole team. But other than that, I mean, of course, I have people that are more senior and more experienced than me. But I don't have one boss. And like, depending on the project I'm working with, I might be the project manager, or I might work for some other project manager and help them. So they would be my boss at that time. So yeah.
How is ego playing in such an environment?
Well, this system, I believe, and again, this was done before I started working in this team. But the saying goes that ego was one of the main reasons why this system was set up, because ego leads to a lot of distortions, because you're going to be defensive about your work. If you have something to defend, or like a title, or a standing to defend, You're not going to want to share maybe things. You're going to feel competitive against your colleagues, because they're better than me, or I'm better than them. Just because many of the rules and systems we have in place in large organizations are designed to kind of put us against each other, and we don't even realize that. So in a system like that, and I mean, of course, it's not perfect. I don't want to portray it as the dreamland. It's not. Okay. Ego still plays a big, big, big role in everyone's life, and there's still pride. There's still having to swallow the hard news. All of that is still there, and it doesn't change, I guess, no matter what system you put in place. But I definitely feel like, compared to other large organizations where I've worked, there is more openness, and just ego is a little bit on the side.
Yeah. And how do you get from where do you get the feeling of fulfillment, or the feeling of, now everyone knows that I've done this project? And I mean, it's not just about ego, but it's also could be about I want to have this, I don't know if I'd call it respect, but I want to have this good feedback from people here who don't really know what I do, and I think I deserve it.
Well, it's an interesting question. You definitely need that kind of feedback, and I'll be honest with you, it was hard at first when I started working, because it's like, okay, there's no one telling me who I am, so I'm gonna have to kind of let other people know who I am and what I'm good at, and what I like to do, what I would like them to rely on me to do in other ways. And it took a much longer time, I would say. Right now, I've been working in this team for a year and a half, I would say. And just now I'm starting to feel like, people know what they can or cannot come to me, for, which is good, but it takes time, because it happens informally and it happens naturally. And in terms of feedback, we have, and of course we have we use really our Slack as a public venue where we can showcase things. When we do a pre-sale, we post it and we comment it, and there's a lot of exchange going around that. And eventually you kind of understand what people are good at, what they want to do. And another way that we do this, though, which we just set up actually, because of course, as I said, we're experimenting, we're tweaking with our DNA here. And one thing that we're doing is we set up a system of sponsorship and objectives and key results. So basically, you have a sponsor, so you don't have a boss, but you're gonna have to choose a sponsor within the company. That's totally unrelated to their seniority. Okay, I could choose a very junior person, or a very junior person could choose a very experienced manager. It doesn't matter at all.
Was there a mentor, or?
They're not a mentor in that a mentor probably puts some content to the table, whereas a sponsor is more like a guide, where you choose a sponsor and you're going to have to set goals with them, quarterly goals on what you want to achieve, where you want to be. And these goals are reviewed publicly, and are posted publicly on WeThud. And basically, so if I want to know what a colleague wants to achieve, I can just go to their page and I see their results, and I see, okay, they want to get better at presentation design. And maybe, it's up to me to give them the chance, if they're working on my project, to do that. And we're setting this up, so it's still a little, we're still putting that in place. So, of course, we'll get there eventually. We're really doing an effort here. And then, the sponsor, what they do also is they collect feedback from the people you work with. So, 360 feedback. We don't do performance review, but we do have moments of review where, if I'm the sponsor of someone, I collect feedback from the people that I've worked with them, and I know the people that I've worked with them because they're logged in the platform.
Yeah.
And then, I'm gonna try to do a good job at summing up everyone's feedback. Some people choose to do this transparently. So, for example, the way I set up my feedback, I asked my colleagues to put it on an Excel, on a Google Drive, and I could read them. But other people choose to do it privately. I mean, it's up to people, really. We don't have a common system yet. And then based on that feedback, you set your goals for the next period.
This is amazing.
Yeah.
So it's all very transparent.
It is. We try to make it transparent. Of course, there's not 100% transparent. And I think when you start out, I mean, if you think of companies like Buffer or companies like, other companies that are 100% like flat and like holocratic, it's much easier if you start out that way. We didn't start out that way. So, there's some trade-offs and some negotiating to do with people, and not everyone is going to be on board, and that's perfectly fine. Yeah. So transition happens a little slower when you start out the old way and go to the new way.
Sounds super insightful. I mean, it's. I guess I have so many questions. I would just have to, try to work in such an environment to even start to realize what it means. Because it's so different, right?
It is. I want to share a little story with you that happened last week, which is really cool. And I thought about it. My mind was kind of blown because it wouldn't work like that in any other company, I think. And to that, like, I have to give credit to H Farm for that. So basically, we had a presentation with a client of ours, and it was a branding project. Like, I do learning and development mostly. But, the freedom that we have is that sometimes we can space out to other kinds of projects, which is something I, as a hyperactive kind of person, I really appreciate being able to, different things guided by the people that know how to do it.
Yeah.
And so I was involved in a branding project, and like we had to write the values for this company and like come up with a payoff. And we had this payoff that like the client was like blown out of their seats. Because like they really loved it. They thought it was so insightful. And for the whole day, this guy from the client company was trying to find the person that came up with the payoff. He was like, you have to tell me who's the genius that came out with this. And we really didn't have an answer for that, and no one was there taking credit for it. And we all stood by the fact that it was a team effort, and we don't even remember who came up with that. So whereas, if you think of a traditional like creative agency, there would have been a signature under that payoff, right? Yeah. The creative person, the able person would have done that. But for us, it was much the result of like a brainstorm in which like there was me, there was the storyteller, there was the business developer, there was the coder, and everyone was there, and we just came up with it, and like everyone contributed to it to the point where there was an ownership. I love this idea because if you ownership is a good thing in terms of making people accountable. Yeah. But when it's about pride and ego, it's better not to have ownership.
Right.
And I love that it doesn't happen 100%, okay? Because it's hard for people to swallow their pride. So I'm not saying it's perfect, but the idea that, sometimes it happens that, there's no ownership to things and it's a collective effort, to me, that's amazing. And I was really, struck by that at the end of the day.
I think that it's not easy for so many people because it's so different from what you learned in school for how people behave, and how to like the habits. And so do you think, I wonder if you guys ever thought about teaching those kind of soft skills or different way of thought to the kids that are learning at H Farm?
I mean, that's really interesting. This is relatively new for us too, because this is a system that we set up recently.
Yeah.
And of course, there's one team within H Farm that works like that. We're a pretty big team, and there's some transferring to happen in this regard. I would love for this to get to the way we teach at school with kids. I'm sure there are some examples. The self-managed organization now is getting huge, so I'm sure there are schools that teach this to their kids. I just don't know where they are.
Can you give a minute? Can you explain in a minute what's the self-manager method?
I mean, it's a movement. I mean, and I mentioned this book by Frederic Laloux, Reinventing Organizations. There's a bunch of other books. There's Brave New Work by Aaron Dignan. There's a few agencies that are specializing in this kind of field where they help companies transition to more human ways of organizing themselves. There's a lot of different people, and again, it's not. I mean, there are coded practices, like holacracy would be an example of a coded practice. But then there are like also more natural and informal ways to make this happen on so many levels, which, there's the strategy level, there's the teaming level, how we organize our workflow, and what do we use to be more productive, how do we manage meetings, how do we manage compensation, like all these things that are usually not part of the regular scrutiny from the strategic teams within companies, but they are a huge factor in determining the success of a company, and we are globally realizing that now. And there's people doing really forward-thinking work in this regard.
Yeah. Listen, unfortunately, we have to wrap it up because it's over 60 minutes now. But it went on so fast, right? I thought we'll speak about so many other things, but it just time ran fast, and I might have to invite you again in a few months or so to speak about the other stuff I wanted to ask you about. But Akilah, thank you so much for sharing so much with us. And I guess we'll need another opportunity to deep dive into what you're doing there right now. But I guess also this is a complicated question now that you're doing so many things there. So one last question. In your near-term or long-term future, is there a specific, I mean, again, not believing in job titles, but say profession-wise, is there a specific profession or job title you would like to pursue? Not as the title, but I mean, doing more of a specific area?
Right. I'm going to be as generic and idealistic as I can be, almost bordering to cheesiness, okay? But bear with me.
Wow.
I think the business I want to be in, really, and I would want to be in that business through the perspective of learning, but it would be like how to make people feel happy and whole in the workplace. We work so many hours a day, and I can't believe that work is something you just do and then check out, and you just bear with it. It's so much of your life that hopefully people can feel that time they're spending within their companies is meaningful, and it's part of their worldview, not just their work view, but their worldview as well, and it fits into some kind of philosophy of life they have. So I would want to transition to a workplace like that, and I hope I get to help people do that.
Akilah, this is one of the most beautiful agendas you could have, so I'm really happy that was your answer.
Great.
So important. There's this thing in Israel with short videos where someone is ranting about something, and it's run by one of the biggest publications in Israel. They have they called Mako, and they are big in digital, in TV, in internet, everywhere. And they invited me 1 week to be the weekly renter, or I don't know how you say it in English, but the one who's upset at something. And my subject was, how the hell are we spending third of our life working when most of us actually hate going to work? How does it make any sense? So I totally agree with you that this is one of the most important things to work on and to try and solve. So now I guess I might invite you to speak here only in 2 to 3 years from now, because you might have more insights about it.
Right. I hope next time we chat, I'm gonna be a step closer to that view.
Okay. Thank you, Akilah, so much.
Thank you. It was a pleasure, Lear, as always.
Okay.
Come see us soon, okay?
What?
At H Farm. Come see us again soon at H Farm.
I will. Okay, bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Question, do you even fuck with a nigga like me? Will you bump me in about 3 days? Really? IDC, cause every time a nigga talk, they KC. The big up picture, fuck your filter, me can't go run, but me can't repeat. No.